I want you to look closely at the split screen I'm showing you right now. On the left side, you see a famous Hollywood A-lister, someone you know, sitting in an interview chair about 10 years ago. Look at their body language. They are hunched over, their shoulders are collapsed forward in a protective shell, their eyes are darting around the room looking for an escape route, and their laughter is nervous, high-pitched, and apologetic. They are broadcasting discomfort. They look exactly like you feel when you walk into a party where you don't know a single soul. Now, look at the right side of the screen. This is that exact same human being with the exact same DNA just 3 years later. The transformation is not just physical, it is energetic. They are taking up space without apologizing for it. Their breathing is deep and diaphragmatic, originating from the belly rather than the chest. Their eye contact is like a laser beam, comfortable, steady, and warm, making the interviewer feel like the only person in the universe. This is not a personality transplant. This is not magic. This is not a gift they were born with. This is a learned set of psychological triggers and behavioral signals that they mastered. And the reason you feel invisible while they feel inevitable is simply because nobody ever gave you the code to the safe.
The biggest lie you have ever been told, the lie that is keeping you trapped in social mediocrity and professional invisibility, is the belief that charisma is an innate trait. We look at magnetic people, the ones who command attention the moment they walk through a doorway, the ones who get the promotion, the date, and the deal effortlessly. And we tell ourselves a comforting fairy tale. We tell ourselves that they have a special spark, a divine roll of the genetic dice that we simply missed out on. We say, oh, they're just a natural. But this belief is destructive. It is a psychological cage. By believing charisma is genetic, you are giving yourself permission to never try, to never improve, and to remain an observer in your own life. The truth, backed by decades of behavioral psychology and neuroscience, is that what you perceive as magic is actually a science. It is a system. Every naturally charismatic person you have ever met has consciously or subconsciously mastered a specific set of inputs that generate a specific output in the human brain. They understand, perhaps intuitively, that humans are hardwired for connection, and they know exactly which buttons to push to activate the dopamine and oxytocin receptors in the people they meet. When you strip away the mystique, charisma is actually a mathematical equation. It is the balance of two distinct qualities, warmth and competence.
If you understand this equation, you can diagnose exactly why your interactions are failing. Let's break it down, because getting this wrong is why you are either being walked all over or being secretly despised. Warmth is your ability to signal approachability, empathy, and safety. It is the signal that you have good intentions toward the other person. Competence, on the other hand, is your ability to signal power, capability, and status. It is the signal that you have the resources, whether they are intellectual, social, or material, to act on those intentions. Here is where most people fail. They over-index on one and completely neglect the other. If you have high warmth but low competence, you are seen as nice, sweet, and compliant, but you are ultimately viewed as a doormat. People like you, but they do not respect you. You are the friend who gets vented to but never invited to the big events. You are the employee who is loved by the team but passed over for the leadership role because you lack executive presence. On the flip side, if you project high competence but low warmth, you enter the danger zone. This is the classic jerk archetype. You might be the smartest person in the room, you might have the most money, the best suit, and the sharpest wit, but if you lack warmth, people will respect your power while actively disliking you. They will fear you, they might even obey you, but they will not root for you. They will wait for you to fail. True magnetism, the kind that creates unforgettable influence, exists only at the intersection of high warmth and high competence. It is the ability to be incredibly powerful and incredibly human at the same time. It is the CEO who remembers the janitor's name and asks about his sick daughter. It is the ability to command respect without demanding it, and to offer kindness without looking weak. This is not about changing your personality, it is about calibrating your signals. Now, I can hear the objection forming in your mind already. You're thinking, but I'm an introvert, I'm not loud, I don't have that high energy bouncing off the walls personality, so I can't be charismatic. Let me shatter that excuse into a million pieces right now.
The idea that magnetism requires you to be an extroverted, loudmouthed entertainer is a myth that is keeping you small. In fact, some of the most magnetic people in history, from Barack Obama to Keanu Reeves, are naturally introverted. The data actually suggests that ambiverts, those who can toggle between listening and speaking, have the highest social success rates. Why? Because real magnetism has nothing to do with being the loudest voice in the room. It has everything to do with presence. The myth of the loud extrovert forces you to perform, to put on a mask, to try and be interesting. But the science of attraction tells us that trying to be impressive actually backfires.
When you focus on being impressive, trying to be funny, trying to look smart, trying to fill every silence with witty banter, you are focusing the spotlight on yourself. This is what we call an internal focus. You are trapped in your own head, obsessing over how you are being perceived. Do I look stupid? Was that joke funny? Why are they looking at me like that? This self-preoccupation is social suicide. It makes you disjointed, anxious, and fundamentally disconnected from the reality of the moment. Magnetic people, by contrast, possess an external focus. They are not trying to be interesting, they are interested. They are not trying to be impressive. They are focused on making the other person feel impressive. This is a critical distinction. The most charismatic person in the room is often the one who says the least, but listens the most intently. They listen with what psychologists call empathic accuracy. They aren't just hearing your words, they are reading your emotions, your values, and the things you aren't saying. This brings us to the biology of why most people repel others without even realizing it. The human brain is a survival machine, and it makes decisions about people in milliseconds, specifically within the first 7 seconds of an interaction. Before you have even opened your mouth to say hello, the other person's subconscious mind has already categorized you. Are you a threat or an ally? Are you high value or low value?
Are you an energy source or an energy drain? Most people walk through life as energy drains. They complain, they gossip, they seek validation, and they approach every interaction with a hidden agenda of, what can I get from this person? This is the stench of scarcity, and it is repulsive to the human nervous system. When you approach a social interaction with a scarcity mindset, feeling like you need their approval, their attention, or their validation, you are broadcasting insecurity. Your mirror neurons interact with theirs, and their amygdala, the threat detection center of the brain, lights up. They might not be able to articulate it, but they feel a visceral urge to back away. They sense your neediness. Neediness is the ultimate anti-charisma. It triggers an unconscious resistance because it signals that you are here to take resources, emotional or otherwise, rather than contribute them. Contrast this with the abundance mindset of a magnetic person. The magnetic individual enters the room knowing they have value to give and needing absolutely nothing in return. They are comfortable with silence because they don't need to prove they are smart. They are willing to disagree because they don't need you to like them to feel good about themselves. Paradoxically, when you stop needing people to like you and start focusing on whether you can add value to their lives, they become desperate to be around you. This shift from scarcity to abundance is not just a mental trick, it changes your physiology. When you are secure in your value, your breathing slows down. Your vocal cords relax, deepening your voice. Your posture opens up, exposing your vital organs, which is a primal signal of confidence and lack of fear. You stop fidgeting. You stop checking your phone to look busy. You become centered. This concept of centered presence is the physical foundation of charisma. Most people are physically collapsed, slouching, which signals defeat, or they are physically rigid, puffing up their chests in an artificial display of dominance that screams insecurity. The magnetic person is grounded. They move as if they belong exactly where they are. They treat the space around them as if they own it, not in an arrogant way, but in a way that suggests they are completely at home in the world. Let's dig deeper into the neuroscience of the first impression. We mentioned the 7-second window. In that window, one of the most powerful signals you send is through your eyes. Eye contact is a double-edged sword. Too little and you look shifty, untrustworthy, or submissive. Too much and you trigger the fight or flight response because you look aggressive or predatory. The magnetic person masters the art of soft focus. They maintain eye contact when the other person is speaking, This signals respect and intense interest. But here is the pro tip that most people miss. They break eye contact occasionally when they are speaking. This takes the pressure off the interaction and prevents it from feeling like an interrogation. Then they return the gaze to drive home a point. This dance of connection and release is what creates psychological safety. We have to talk about the introvert excuse again, because it is the single biggest barrier for so many of you. You might think, I can't do this because I get drained by people. Listen to me closely. You get drained by people because you are doing it wrong. You are drained because you are performing. You are drained because you are running a constant mental calculation of, am I doing this right? That cognitive load is exhausting. True magnetism is effortless because it is not a performance. It is a state of being. It is about removing the layers of anxiety and self-judgment so that your natural personality can shine through. When you shift your focus from, how do I look, to who is this person in front of me, the anxiety evaporates. Curiosity is the cure for social anxiety. You cannot be curious and frightened at the same time. They are different neural pathways. So if charisma is a learnable science, what is the curriculum? It starts with the understanding that humans are desperate to be seen. In a world of distracted, phone-addicted zombies, giving someone your full, undivided presence is a revolutionary act.
It makes you rare, and in economics, scarcity creates value. If you are the one person in the room who is actually there, fully present, listening not to respond but to understand, you instantly become the most valuable person in that room. This is the psychology of visibility. Most people feel invisible. They feel like a cog in a machine, a face in the crowd. When you use specific techniques, like repeating their name, referencing a detail they mentioned 10 minutes ago, or asking a question that invites them to share their passions rather than just their job title, you are giving them the drug they crave most: significance. You are validating their existence. And because you are the source of that validation, their brain begins to associate you with the rush of dopamine and oxytocin they are feeling. They might not remember exactly what you said, but as Maya Angelou famously implied, they will never forget how you made them feel. This is the mechanics of emotional impact. It is not about being the smartest. It is not about being the funniest. It is about being the one who makes them feel smart and funny. It is about holding up a mirror to them that shows them the best version of themselves. When you do that, you become addictive. You become a people magnet, not because you are manipulating them, but because you are feeding a starving psychological need. But knowing this is not enough. Intellectual understanding does not translate to behavioral change. You can read every book on swimming, but until you get in the water, you are going to drown. That is why we need to move from theory to protocol. We need to bridge the gap between knowing that warmth and competence are important and actually embodying them when you are staring at a stranger at a networking event or trying to impress a date. The transformation requires a systematic rewriting of your default social scripts. It requires you to catch yourself when you slip into scarcity mode and manually shift gears into abundance mode. It requires you to notice when your posture has collapsed and recenter your gravity. It requires you to suppress the urge to tell a story about yourself and instead ask a follow-up question about them. This is where the 7-day protocol comes in. We are not just going to talk about these concepts, we are going to install them into your nervous system. We are going to break down the specific micro-habits, the way you stand, the way you breathe, the way you use silence to create anticipation rather than awkwardness, that will take you from being the person who blends into the wallpaper to the person who commands the room. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's about unbecoming the insecure, inhibited version of yourself that you've been hiding behind. We are going to strip away the introvert excuse, destroy the natural talent myth, and give you the raw, actionable tools to engineer your own influence.
Because the truth is, you are already broadcasting a signal every second of every day. The only question is, are you broadcasting static or are you broadcasting a symphony? The difference between the person you are today and the person you want to be, the one who attracts opportunities, relationships, and success like a magnet, is not a mystery. It is a set of skills. It is a daily practice of emotional regulation, social calibration, and intentional generosity. It is about understanding that every interaction is an opportunity to make someone's day better, and in doing so, making your own life richer. You have been operating with a faulty map, believing that the territory of influence was forbidden to you, but the map has changed. You now know that the gift is a lie. You know that the awkward celebrity became the icon through work, not magic. You know that your brain is capable of rewiring itself for connection. Now we are going to look at exactly how to execute this. We are going to dive into the specific body language hacks that hack the primitive brain, the conversation structures that turn small talk into deep connection, and the mindset shifts that make rejection irrelevant. This is not just about being liked, it is about being effective. It is about moving through the world with the ease of someone who knows the rules of the game. You are about to learn how to turn the boring interview of your life into the commanding performance.
You are about to learn how to balance warmth and competence so perfectly that people trust you instantly and respect you deeply. The science is clear, the psychology is sound. The only variable left in the equation is your willingness to apply it. We are going to start with the most fundamental layer of human interaction, the silent language that speaks louder than any words you could ever say. We are going to talk about the signals you are sending right now, sitting there, watching this video. Are your shoulders up? Is your jaw clenched? Are you holding your breath? These are the leaks in your charisma bucket, and we are going to plug them one by one. The journey from invisible to irresistible begins with the realization that you are in control of the signal, and once you take control of the signal, you take control of the response.
Imagine this scenario, because we have all been there, and it is the stuff of nightmares. You walk into a crowded room at a networking event or a party where you do not know a single soul. The moment you step through that doorframe, something terrifying happens in your brain. The camera of your perception shifts. Suddenly, you are in a point of view shot. The lights seem brighter, the noise seems louder, and you feel with absolute certainty that every single pair of eyes in that room has just snapped toward you. You feel the heat rising up your neck, you feel your heart rate spike, you become hyper aware of your hands. What are you supposed to do with your hands? Are you walking weird? Is there something on your shirt? In that moment, your brain convinces you that you are the main character in a high-stakes drama, and everyone else is the audience, judging your performance in real time. But now, I want you to mentally zoom out, pull the camera back, way back. Look at that same room from a God's eye view. What is actually happening? Nobody is looking at you, not one person. The guy by the bar is worrying about whether he has spinach in his teeth. The woman in the corner is rehearsing what she's going to say to her boss. The group in the center is laughing at a joke, completely oblivious to your existence. This gap between what you feel, that intense scrutiny, and the reality that you are essentially invisible, is what psychologists call the spotlight effect. It is a cognitive distortion where we vastly overestimate how much people notice our appearance or our behavior. And while knowing this intellectually is nice, it usually does not stop the sweating or the anxiety. To fix this, to actually become that person who can walk into a room and command it rather than shrink from it, we have to understand why your brain is lying to you. We have to look at the biology of awkwardness. This isn't about you being socially inept or broken. This is about you running outdated software on modern hardware. Your brain is not designed for a cocktail party in 2024. It is designed for the savannah 50,000 years ago. Back then, human beings lived in small tribes of maybe 50 to 150 people. In that environment, social standing was not just about popularity, it was literally a matter of life and death. If you did something awkward, if you offended the tribe, if you were socially rejected, you didn't just have a bad Friday night, you were exiled. And in the wild, exile meant death. You would starve or you would be eaten by a predator. So your brain evolved a highly sensitive paranoid alarm system to detect the slightest possibility of social rejection. That anxiety you feel when you walk into a room isn't a personality flaw, it is a survival mechanism. It is your amygdala screaming at you, be careful, if you mess this up, we die. This is why public speaking is consistently ranked as a fear higher than death itself for many people. It makes no logical sense. You are not going to die if you fumble a sentence, but biologically, standing alone in front of a staring tribe triggers the exact same terror circuit as facing down a saber-toothed tiger. We can measure this. This isn't just a metaphor.
Neuroscientists have done fascinating studies using fMRI scans to look at what happens in the brain when we experience social rejection. They put people in a scanner and had them play a digital ball tossing game with 2 other virtual players. Eventually, the 2 virtual players stop throwing the ball to the participant. They just ignore them. It is a mild digital snub. But inside the scanner, the participant's brain lights up like a Christmas tree. Specifically, the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex activates. Here is the kicker. That is the exact same region of the brain that processes physical pain. When you stub your toe or burn your hand, that is the part of the brain that fires. To your nervous system, the pain of being ignored at a party and the pain of breaking your arm are remarkably similar. Social pain is real pain. Evolution grew our social attachment system on top of our physical pain system to ensure we stayed connected to the group. So when you feel that cringy, gut-wrenching feeling of awkwardness, your body is reacting to a physical threat.
That is why you want to curl up in a ball. That is why your digestion shuts down. That is why you can't think of anything clever to say. Your body is diverting resources to your muscles to fight or flee, not to your prefrontal cortex to make witty banter. You are in survival mode. And this leads us to the trap, the safety behavior trap. Because your brain registers the social environment as a threat, it demands you take action to protect yourself. It wants you to hide. It wants you to build a shield. In the modern world, we don't hide behind bushes. We hide behind behaviors that we think make us look busy or unbothered, but actually signal to everyone else that we are terrified. Let's look at the most common one, the smartphone shield. You walk into that room, you feel the spotlight effect. The anxiety spikes, and what is the first thing you do? You pull out your phone, you look down, you start scrolling through emails from 3 years ago or refreshing Instagram for the 10th time. You think you are signaling, I am busy, I am important, I am just checking something crucial. You are trying to look occupied so you don't look like a loner. But that is not what the room sees. According to the science of body language and evolutionary psychology, what you are actually broadcasting is a massive neon sign that says, I am uncomfortable, I am insecure, do not approach me. When you look down at your phone, you are collapsing your posture.
You are rounding your shoulders and lowering your head. In primate terms, this is a submissive gesture. It is a protective curl. You are physically closing off your vital organs, which signals to others that you feel threatened. Furthermore, by breaking eye contact with the room, you are triggering the social brain of everyone else to categorize you as low value or resource poor. Remember, humans are drawn to abundance. We are drawn to people who have energy to give. When you hide in your phone, you are entering a state of scarcity. You are signaling that you need this device to feel safe, that you cannot handle the raw reality of the moment. You are an energy drain. It goes deeper than just the phone. Think about the crossed arms. You might think, I'm just cold, or this is comfortable. But psychologically, folding your arms across your chest is a barrier signal. It is a way of protecting the heart and lungs from attack. When you stand in the corner with a drink held high against your chest or your arms knotted up, you are subconsciously telling every other human in the room, I am closed for business. And the tragedy is, this becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You feel awkward, so you engage in these safety behaviors, phones, crossed arms, staying in the shadows, to protect yourself. These behaviors make you look unapproachable and repelling, so nobody talks to you, which confirms your fear that you don't belong.
Which makes you feel more awkward, which makes you check your phone more. It is a feedback loop from hell, driven entirely by a biological misunderstanding. We have to talk about the repulsion mechanism here, because it is harsh but true. Most people are completely unaware of the signals they are broadcasting. You might be the kindest, most interesting person in the world, but if your biology is hijacking your body language, you will repel people before you even open your mouth. The brain makes decisions about people in milliseconds, within the first 7 seconds of interaction, and often before a single word is spoken. This is the neuroscience of first impressions. The subconscious mind of the other person is scanning you. Friend or foe, high status or low status, safe or unsafe. If you are broadcasting insecurity through these safety behaviors, their mirror neurons pick up on your anxiety. Mirror neurons are these incredible cells in our brains that allow us to empathize and understand others by simulating their state in our own minds. If you are anxious, tight, and hiding, the person looking at you will literally start to feel a microdose of that same anxiety. You make them feel uncomfortable just by looking at you. And because the human brain seeks to maximize pleasure and minimize pain, they will subconsciously want to get away from you. They won't even know why. They will just get a bad vibe.
That bad vibe is your internal state leaking out and infecting them. This is why trying to act cool never works if you are internally panicking. You cannot fake the frequency. Real magnetism requires a shift in the biology itself. So how do we hack this? How do we rewrite the code? The narrative shift starts here. You have to stop believing that your social anxiety is a reflection of your personality. It is not just who you are. It is a biological reflex, like sneezing when you get dust in your nose. And just like you can learn to stifle a sneeze, you can learn to override this reflex. The first step is what we call flipping the focus. This connects directly to the concept of internal versus external focus. When you are in that awkward spiral, you are 100% internally focused. You are monitoring your heart rate, your thoughts, your hands, your fear. This self-preoccupation is quite literally social suicide. It consumes all your mental bandwidth, leaving you with zero processing power to actually listen to or observe others. The hack is to manually, forcefully shift your attention from internal to external. It is a mechanical process. When you feel the anxiety rise, instead of checking your phone, you treat the room like a detective. You force your brain to collect data outside of itself. Look at the color of the walls. Look at the shoes the person next to you is wearing. Listen to the specific pitch of the laughter in the corner. By forcing your sensory processing outward, you short-circuit the amygdala's loop of internal doom. You are telling your brain, we are not the prey here, we are the observer. This lowers your threat response. Once you lower the threat response, you can drop the safety behaviors. You can put the phone away. You can uncross your arms. You can expose your torso. This is terrifying at first because your biology is screaming that you are vulnerable. But this is where the magic of embodied confidence comes in. The mind influences the body, but the body also influences the mind. If you stand with an open posture, shoulders back, chest open, weight grounded, hands visible, you are sending a signal back to your own brain that says, I am safe, I am powerful, I have nothing to fear. It is a biohack. You are tricking your ancient survival brain into believing you are the tribal chief, not the exile. When you do this, when you stand in the open stance despite the fear, you stop triggering the threat detectors in other people. Instead of their mirror neurons picking up anxiety, they pick up stability. In a room full of nervous, phone-checking, arm-crossing people, the person who is simply standing comfortably with open body language and calm focus becomes a lighthouse. You become an energy source in a sea of energy drains. Remember, most people are operating from that place of scarcity and fear. They are looking for safety. When you regulate your own biology, when you hack your own awkwardness, you become the safest harbor in the room. You signal abundance. You signal that you are okay, which means you have the capacity to make them okay. This brings us to the profound realization about social pain. We learned that rejection hurts because we need the tribe. But the flip side is also true. Acceptance heals. Connection releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, which is the antidote to cortisol, the stress hormone. When you realize that everyone else in the room is also fighting their own biology, also terrified of social pain, also worrying about the spotlight effect, your perspective shifts from fear to compassion. You stop seeing them as judges who are about to sentence you to death and start seeing them as fellow humans who are desperate for a moment of safety. This is the key to becoming a people magnet. It is not about impressing them. It is about rescuing them from their own awkwardness. When you approach someone, you are not asking for their approval. You are offering them a break from their own internal monologue. You are saving them from the spotlight effect. By shifting your goal from, I need them to like me, to, I am going to make them feel comfortable, you align with the deepest laws of human psychology.
You are working with the biology of connection rather than fighting the biology of fear.
So the next time you feel that heat on your neck and you want to reach for your phone, stop. Recognize the signal. Say to yourself, this is just my prehistoric brain worrying about a saber-toothed tiger that isn't here. Take a deep breath to reset your nervous system, physically expanding your diaphragm to signal safety to the vagus nerve. Drop your shoulders, look up, find someone else who looks uncomfortable, and go save them. Because the irony of the biology of awkwardness is that the only way to cure your own social pain is to focus entirely on alleviating someone else's. That is not just poetry, that is evolutionary mechanics. When you become the source of safety for the tribe will never exile you. They will revere you. They will be drawn to you. That is the science of influence. It starts not with what you say, but with how you regulate the ancient machinery of your own mind. Now let's go deeper into the mechanics of this safety signal, because most people get this wrong. They think being open means being loud or extroverted. It doesn't. You can be the quietest person in the room and still be the most magnetic if your silence is rooted in comfort rather than fear. We need to distinguish between scarcity silence and abundant silence. Scarcity silence is awkward. It's the silence where you are frantically searching for something to say because you're afraid the other person is judging you.
I am boring, please don't leave. Abundant silence is comfortable. It is the silence of two people sitting by a fire. It signals, I am content with myself and I am content with you. I don't need to perform to be worthy. To get to that place of abundant silence, you have to understand the spotlight effect is actually a form of narcissism, not in a malicious way, but in a functional way. It assumes you are central to everyone's reality. The moment you truly internalize that people are obsessed with themselves, you are free. You are liberated. You can stand in the middle of the room and do nothing and realize the world doesn't end. This liberation allows you to observe the social scripts playing out around you. You start to see the matrix. You see the guy name dropping because he feels small. You see the woman laughing too loud because she wants to be seen. You see the insecurity masking itself as arrogance. And instead of feeling intimidated by these people, you feel empathy. You see their biology acting up. This is where you become a social hacker. You are no longer a victim of the room. You are an operator within it. You can see the safety behavior traps in others, and this gives you a superpower, the ability to lower the stakes. Since you know their brain is scanning for threats, you can consciously broadcast safety. You can use your body language to disarm their amygdala. How? By exposing your palms.
This is one of the oldest human signals. Open palms mean, I have no weapons. I am not a threat. When you talk, use open gestures. When you listen, keep your hands visible. It seems like a tiny detail, but to the subconscious mind, it is the difference between an enemy and a friend. Furthermore, we must address the eye contact equation in this biological framework. In the animal kingdom, staring is a threat. It's a challenge for dominance. But looking away is submission. So where is the magnetic sweet spot? It is the soft focus. It is maintaining contact not to dominate, but to understand. It is the difference between a hunter looking at prey and a mother looking at a child. Magnetic people master this soft, curious gaze. They look at you and their eyes say, I see you. You are interesting. They are not scanning you for flaws, they are scanning you for value. And because we all desperately want to be seen and valued, this gaze is addictive. It triggers that dopamine hit in the recipient's brain. But remember, this creates a high voltage connection. If you are not grounded, if you are still internally freaking out, you cannot sustain this type of connection. You will break it. You will look away. You will check the phone. That is why the internal work, the narrative shift, must come first. You must truly believe that you have value to give. This brings us back to the scarcity versus abundance mindset from the source code of human interaction. If you walk into the interaction thinking, I hope they like me, you are a beggar. Beggars are ignored. If you walk in thinking, I wonder what makes this person fascinating, you are a benefactor. You are an explorer. You are bringing the gift of attention, and attention is the rarest and most valuable currency in the modern world. We are living in an attention economy, but we are also living in an attention desert. Everyone is distracted. everyone is checking the phone shield. So when you offer undivided, calm, biologically safe attention, you are offering water in the desert. You become instantly unforgettable because you are providing a resource that is critically endangered: presence. Your biology, now hacked and regulated, becomes a beacon of presence. You are no longer fighting the flight response. You have transmuted that energy into focus. Think about the most charismatic person you know. Do they fidget? Do they dart their eyes around the room looking for someone more important? No, they are still. They are grounded. This stillness is not lethargy. It is the absence of safety behaviors. It is the absence of fear. They have hacked the biology of awkwardness to reach a state of unshakable self-acceptance. They accept their own humanity, which makes it safe for you to accept yours. This is the ultimate goal. Not to be perfect, not to be the smoothest talker,
but to be the person who has made peace with their own biology so they can help others make peace with theirs. When you stop trying to be cool and start trying to be real, your brain stops treating the social environment as a threat and starts treating it as a playground. The cortisol drops, the oxytocin rises, and suddenly you aren't just in the room, you are the room. You have moved from the person fearing the spotlight to the person holding the lantern, lighting the way for everyone else. That is the biology of influence. That is how you win. Let's get tactical. We have spent a considerable amount of time unpacking the psychology of the magnetic mindset, dismantling the myths of scarcity, and understanding that charisma is not magic, it is a mechanism. Now, we are going to pivot hard into the hardware. We are moving from the operating system of your mind to the user interface of your body and your words. This is the section where most advice fails because it gives you vague platitudes like be confident or just be yourself, which, as we have established, is useless if yourself is currently broadcasting insecurity, anxiety, or closed-off signals that the primate brain interprets as a threat. We are going to break down the mechanics of magnetism into 3 specific, actionable micro-habits that you can deploy immediately. These are not parlor tricks. They are leveraged behavioral adaptations that hack the evolutionary biology of the people you meet to bypass their amygdala's threat detection and go straight to the part of the brain that craves connection, safety, and leadership. We are going to start with the physical, move to the verbal, and then master the silence between the two. The first micro-habit is what I call the eyebrow flash combined with the open torso technique. And to understand why this works, you have to understand that your brain is essentially a prediction machine that is constantly scanning the environment for friends or foes.
As we discussed in the Neuroscience of First Impressions, this decision happens in milliseconds, often within the first 7 seconds of an interaction, long before you have opened your mouth to say hello. The eyebrow flash is a universal cross-cultural signal of recognition and non-aggression. It is a rapid, split-second raising of the eyebrows that opens the eyes slightly wider. In the animal kingdom, and specifically among primates, this signals that you are attentive, you are surprised in a positive way, and most importantly, you are not preparing for an attack. When you walk into a room and you see someone, if your face remains static and your brows stay low, you are unconsciously signaling dominance, aggression, or disinterest, all of which trigger a subtle fight or flight resistance in the other person. You might think you look cool and mysterious, but to their reptilian brain, you look like a potential problem. To see this in action at the highest level, you need to study footage of Bill Clinton or Oprah Winfrey in their prime. Watch Clinton when he walks toward a rope line. He doesn't just smile with his mouth, the movement starts at the eyes. He spots someone, flashes the brows, and simultaneously engages the second half of this habit, the open torso. This is crucial because most of us, especially in the age of smartphones and desk jobs, walk around in a state of physical collapse. We hunch our shoulders, we cross our arms, or we hold our phones in front of our chests like a shield. In the language of body language mastery, this is a defensive posture that protects your vital organs, your heart and your lungs, from an attack. When you approach someone with your arms crossed or your phone held high, you are telling their subconscious that you feel unsafe, and because emotions are contagious via mirror neurons, you make them feel unsafe. Clinton and Oprah do the opposite. They unblock the torso. They keep their arms low and open, exposing the heart center. This is a profound biological signal of trust. It says, I am so comfortable in my skin, and I trust you so much that I am willing to expose my most vulnerable organs to you. This triggers a reciprocal feeling of safety in the other person. When you combine the eyebrow flash, which says, I see you and I like what I see, with the open torso, which says, I am safe and I am open, you create a chemical cocktail of safety that allows the other person to drop their guard instantly. You are hacking the centered presence we talked about in Chapter 8, using your physical form to broadcast abundance rather than scarcity. You are not shrinking to fit the room, you are expanding to welcome the room. Moving deeper into this physical mechanics, we have to address the why behind the discomfort most people feel when trying this. It feels vulnerable because it is vulnerable. You are stripping away the physical armor you have built up to protect your ego. But remember, the core principle of Chapter 3, magnetism comes from an external focus. If you are worrying about how you look doing an eyebrow flash, you are in an internal focus loop, essentially committing social suicide by being trapped in your head. The goal is to be completely absorbed in the other person. When you execute this, you are not performing, you are signaling. You are telling them you are significant. This aligns perfectly with the psychological truth that humans are desperate to feel seen. The eyebrow flash is the physical manifestation of I see you. It's a micro-validation. And when you couple that with the open torso, you are validating them from a position of strength and security, not neediness. You aren't opening up because you need their approval. You are opening up because you have high social status and nothing to fear. That distinction is what separates the people magnet from the people pleaser. Now, let's transition to the verbal mechanics. You have made the approach, you have signaled safety with your body, and now you have to speak. This brings us to habit 2, the Ford method remix. Most social advice tells you to use the Ford acronym, family, occupation, recreation, dreams, as a checklist for small talk. This is typically where people go wrong. They treat it like an interrogation. Do you have siblings? What do you do for work?
Do you like golf? This is boring, surface-level information exchange that creates zero emotional resonance. As we learned in Chapter 6 regarding the conversation control system, every interaction has an emotional current, and your job is not to collect facts, but to tap into that current. The "what do you do?" question is the absolute killer of magnetism because it forces the other person to recite their standard, rehearsed script. It also immediately introduces social hierarchy, forcing them to justify their status to you. It creates distance, not connection. We are going to remix the Ford method by applying the principle of active curiosity escalation and emotional labeling. Instead of asking for facts, we are going to ask for feelings. Instead of "what do you do?" the magnetic question is, what is the most exciting project you are working on right now? Or what's the best part of your week been so far? Look at the difference in neural processing required to answer those questions. What do you do retrieves a pre-recorded soundbite from the memory center. What excites you forces them to access the limbic system, the emotional center of the brain. You are asking them to scan their recent life for a hit of dopamine and share it with you. When they answer, they relive that excitement, and because you are the one who elicited it, their brain associates that positive neurochemical surge with your presence. This is how you become an energy source rather than an energy drain. Let's break down the Ford categories with this high-value density approach. For family, don't ask, "Are you married?" Ask, "How do you guys usually spend your weekends?" This invites a story, not a status update. For recreation, don't ask, "What are your hobbies?" Ask, "What's the last thing you did that made you completely lose track of time?" For dreams, don't ask, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" That's a job interview question. Ask, "If you didn't have to work for money, how would you spend your days?" These questions penetrate the social mask. They signal that you are not interested in the social avatar they present to the world. You are interested in the human being underneath. You are leveraging the scarcity versus abundance mindset here. A person operating from scarcity asks standard questions because they are afraid of breaking social norms. A person operating from abundance asks deep questions because they are genuinely fascinated by human nature and confident enough to guide the conversation into uncharted waters. But the tactical instruction doesn't stop at just asking the question. You must master the follow-up, which involves reflecting back what you hear. As Chapter 5 outlines, listening is not just waiting for your turn to speak. It is empathetic accuracy. When they answer your question about what excites them, you don't just say "cool" and move on. You label the emotion.
If they talk about a stressful but rewarding project, you say, "That sounds incredibly challenging, but it seems like you thrive on that kind of pressure." This proves you aren't just listening to the words, you are hearing the person. You are validating their experience. This releases oxytocin in their brain, the bonding hormone. You are effectively creating a neurological bridge between you and them. You are making them feel felt. And remember, people will forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. By remixing the Ford method from fact-finding to emotion hunting, you ensure they feel fascinating, which in turn makes you unforgettable. Now we have to address the elephant in the room. You have the body language, you have the questions, but what happens when the conversation stalls? What happens when there is a pause? This brings us to the interactive segment of this video, and I want you to actually do this with me because it is uncomfortable, and that discomfort is where the growth lives. We are going to practice the art of the 3-second silence. In Chapter 4, we discussed how magnetic people are comfortable with silence because they don't need to prove themselves. They don't have that nervous, fill-the-gap energy that screams insecurity. I want you to pause this video right now, put your phone down or look away from the screen. I want you to sit in total silence for 3 full seconds.
Count them. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. Go. Okay, are you back? Did you feel that urge to check your notification? Did you feel the twitch to hum a tune or a shift in your seat? That is the scarcity mindset manifesting physically. That is your brain saying, silence is dangerous. Silence means rejection. Silence means the predator is stalking us. In a social interaction, when you ask a deep question like, what excites you right now? The other person might need a moment to think. Most people panic and interrupt that thinking process with a, just kidding, or I mean like for work. They trample the moment. The magnetic micro-habit is to hold the space. Ask the question and then shut up. Let the silence hang there. Maintain a soft, interested eye contact. This signals immense confidence. It says, I am comfortable enough to wait for your real answer. It gives them permission to go deep. It removes the pressure to perform. This is the difference between an awkward silence and a pregnant pause. An awkward silence is filled with your anxiety. A pregnant pause is filled with your presence. By practicing this 3-second buffer, you become a sanctuary in a noisy world. You become the person people can actually think around, not just react to. However, intensity can be too much.
If you are doing the eyebrow flash, opening your torso, asking deep questions, and holding intense eye contact during silence, you might accidentally veer into interrogation or intense staring contest territory. This brings us to habit 3, triangulation. This is the pressure release valve that keeps the interaction natural and fluid. Direct, unbroken eye contact triggers a primal response. It can be intimate, yes, but it can also be predatory. In the wild, a stare that never breaks means I am about to attack you. To avoid triggering this defensive response while maintaining connection, you need to introduce a third element. Triangulation is the art of including the environment or an object into the dyad of the conversation to break the tension without breaking the connection. Imagine a triangle. You are one point, the person you are talking to is the second point. If it's just a straight line between you two, the tension builds. You need a third point. This could be the drink in your hand, a piece of art on the wall, a passerby, or even the view out the window. The mechanic works like this. You ask a question, you hold the eye contact while they answer, and then as you are digesting their answer or preparing your own, you shift your gaze to the third point for a split second before bringing it back to them. This creates a side-by-side dynamic rather than a face-to-face confrontation. It signals that you and the other person are a team looking at the world together, rather than two entities analyzing each other. For example, if you are at a networking event and the conversation gets heavy, you can gesture to the venue and say, "It's amazing they pulled this whole event together," while looking at the room, then immediately snap your eyes back to them and say, "But I love what you were saying about your project." That brief disconnection resets the amygdala's intensity meter. It allows the other person to breathe. It shows that you are socially calibrated. You are reading the room, not just fixated on them like a laser. This triangulation technique is also a masterclass in body language mastery from Chapter 8. It allows you to vary your posture. You can shift your weight, open up your stance to include the room, and then close the distance again for intimacy. It prevents the frozen rigidity that signals anxiety. Magnetic people are fluid. They move. They engage with the environment. They are comfortable enough to take their eyes off the prize because they know the connection is secure. It communicates, I am here with you, but I am also aware of the world. It's a subtle display of dominance and awareness that is incredibly attractive. Let's synthesize how these 3 habits stack on top of each other in a real-world scenario to see the full mechanics of magnetism in play. Imagine walking into a coffee shop or a boardroom.
Step 1. You enter the doorway. You don't look at your phone. You scan the room. You see someone you know or someone you want to meet. You hit them with the eyebrow flash, that half-second hello, and you consciously uncross your arms, drop your shoulders, and expose your torso. You have just persuaded them into seeing you as a friend. Step 2. You approach. You don't ask, how are you, or busy day? You assume a level of familiarity, a key abundance mindset trait, and you say, I saw you from across the room and you looked like you were in deep thought. What is the big idea you are working on today? You have bypassed the small talk. You have engaged the forward remix. Step 3. They start talking. They are surprised by the quality of the question. They have to think. They pause. You don't rush in. You hold the 3-second silence. You breathe deeply into your diaphragm, anchoring your own nervous system, which calms theirs. Step 4. As the conversation flows and the intensity builds, you use triangulation. You glance at the coffee machine or the street outside to illustrate a point, breaking the tension, then return your gaze with renewed focus to show them they still have your full attention. This sequence is the learnable science we promised in the introduction. It removes luck from the equation. It is not about whether you are feeling particularly charming that day. It is about whether you are executing the mechanics.
And the beautiful thing about these habits is that they work backwards on your own psychology too. We often think we need to feel confident to act confident, but the science of embodied cognition tells us it works the other way around. By forcing your brows up, opening your chest, and holding silence, you are sending signals back to your own brain that say, I am safe, I am powerful, I am in control. You trick yourself into becoming magnetic. These habits also solve the problem of broadcasting insecurities discussed in Chapter 2. When you are focused on the eyebrow flash, you aren't thinking about your insecurities. When you are listening for the emotional current to ask a better question, you aren't worrying if you sound smart. When you are managing the geometry of the conversation through triangulation, you aren't fidgeting. The mechanics force you into the external focus that is the hallmark of every charismatic person in history. You become a vessel for the interaction rather than an obstacle to it. We need to go deeper into the forward remix because the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your questions. Most people operate on a scarcity of information basis. They ask questions to get data. Magnetic people operate on an abundance of connection basis. They ask questions to give the other person an experience.
When you ask someone about their dreams in a specific, non-cheesy way, like, what's the one thing you've always wanted to try but haven't found the time for yet? You are giving them a gift. You are giving them permission to vocalize a hope. In a world where everyone is crushed by the mundane, being the person who unlocks a moment of hope is a superpower. You become associated with their best self. And this links directly to the concept of social value from Chapter 2. We are drawn to people who have value to offer. We usually think of value as money, connections, or status, but emotional value is just as rare and just as potent. By listening with active curiosity and holding space with silence, you are providing a rare resource, attention. Pure, undiluted, non-judgmental attention. In the attention economy, this is the most expensive currency there is. When you give it away freely using these micro-habits, you trigger the law of reciprocity. People feel a deep, unconscious need to give back to you, to please you, to agree with you. This is the invisible influence system from Chapter 7 kicking in without you ever having to manipulate or coerce. Furthermore, let's analyze the triangulation habit through the lens of social proof and high-status behavior. Low-status individuals are often hyper-fixated on the person with higher status. They are afraid to look away because they don't want to lose the connection. High-status individuals, magnetic individuals, are comfortable looking away because they know their value doesn't disappear when they break eye contact. By using triangulation, you are subtly signaling high status. You are saying, I am engaged, but I am not needy. This activates the scarcity principle in the other person. When you look away at the environment, your attention becomes momentarily scarce, making them want it back. When you return your gaze, it is a reward. This is a delicate dance, essentially a dopamine loop you are running in real time. It is important to remember that these habits must be practiced until they reach the level of unconscious competence mentioned in Chapter 9. At first, you will feel like a robot. You will be thinking, okay, eyebrow up, torso open, ask about excitement, look at the lamp. That is normal. That is the learning phase. But you must push through the clumsiness. The goal is to integrate these into your natural behavior so that they become your baseline. You want to be the person who naturally lights up when they see someone, who naturally dives deep, and who naturally navigates the energy of the room. Think about the pattern recognition we discussed in Chapter 6. Magnetic people notice patterns. When you start using these habits, start noticing the patterns and how people respond to you. Watch their shoulders drop when you open your torso. Watch their eyes light up when you ask what excites them.
Watch them relax when you use triangulation. These are your data points. They confirm that the science is working. You are no longer guessing, you are operating. You are essentially a social surgeon using precision instruments to cut through the noise and graft a connection. Finally, do not underestimate the power of the 3-second silence as a tool for emotional regulation. When you pause, you are also giving yourself a chance to check your own energy. Are you getting anxious? Are you talking too fast? The pause is your reset button. It allows you to breathe deep into the belly, which stimulates the vagus nerve and lowers your heart rate. A lower heart rate means a lower vocal pitch, and a lower vocal pitch is associated with authority and calm confidence. So the silence doesn't just help the other person, it biologically optimizes you for the rest of the interaction. It keeps you in the driver's seat. It prevents the manic energy that repels people and maintains the calm energy that attracts them. You are mastering the flow of time in the conversation, refusing to be rushed by the neurotic pace of modern social interaction. This is the ultimate power move. Not power over them, but power over yourself.
We have spent the last half hour deconstructing the neuroscience of charisma, tearing apart the myths that have kept you on the sidelines of your own life, and rebuilding your understanding of human connection from the ground up. But information without execution is nothing more than cognitive hoarding. You can understand the mechanics of a jet engine, you can memorize the schematics, but that does not mean you know how to fly the plane. And right now, most of you are grounded, sitting on the runway, revving the engine with the brakes on because you are waiting for permission to take off. This next section is that permission, but more importantly, it is your flight plan, because we are moving from the theoretical to the tactical, shifting from the passive absorption of information to the active application of influence through a gamified system I call the 7-Day Social Sniper Action Plan. This is not about vaguely trying to be nicer or hoping you remember to smile. This is a military-grade, precision-engineered schedule designed to force your brain out of its scarcity-driven, self-protective default mode and into the abundance-based magnetic reality we have been discussing. We are going to stress test your social muscles, starting with low-stakes interactions that carry almost zero risk of rejection and scaling up to high-level social maneuvers that will fundamentally alter your identity.
Days 1 and 2 are designated as low risk, and your objective here is what I call the Barista Challenge, which sounds deceptively simple, but is actually a profound exercise in rewiring your reticular activating system to spot value where others see utility. Your mission is to enter a service interaction, a coffee shop, a grocery checkout, a bank teller, and make that person smile using one specific constraint. You are strictly forbidden from complimenting their physical appearance. We are banning the low-hanging fruit of I like your hair or cool tattoos because those are surface-level observations that require zero social intelligence and trigger zero deep psychological impact. Remember the core principle we discussed from the psychology of instant attraction. Humans are desperate to be seen, not just looked at, but deeply understood and valued for their agency, their choices, and their competence. When you tell a barista she has nice eyes, you are complimenting her genetics, something she had no hand in creating. But when you watch her handle a rush of 10 orders with military precision, and you look her in the eye and say, "I have to tell you, the way you are handling this chaos is genuinely impressive. You have an incredible workflow." You are validating her competence, her effort, and her intelligence. You are hitting the reward centers of her brain that crave significance, triggering a release of dopamine that is now neuro-associated with your face.
This works because of the concept of energy sources versus energy drains that we analyzed in the first chapter. Most people in that line are drains, treating the cashier as a vending machine, broadcasting their own stress and impatience, or worse, they are invisible, scrolling on their phones, refusing to offer even a micro-expression of acknowledgement. By breaking this pattern, you become an immediate pattern interrupt, a glitch in their matrix of monotony that forces them to become present. You are operating from the abundance mindset we talked about, proving to your own subconscious that you have value to give, in this case, the value of recognition, without needing anything in return, not even a discount or a free drink. The goal is simply to observe the shift in their physiology, to watch their shoulders drop, their breathing deepen, and their eyes light up, confirming the science we discussed regarding how the brain categorizes people who make us feel good as high-value assets. You are training yourself to scan the world for things to appreciate rather than things to fear, shifting your internal focus to an external focus, which is the foundational pillar of the magnetic mindset. Moving into days 3, 4, and 5, we escalate to medium risk with an operation I call the elevator pitch. But this has nothing to do with selling a business idea and everything to do with selling your own comfort with uncertainty.
Your task is to ask one open-ended question to a stranger in a waiting scenario. An elevator, an Uber ride, a long line at the post office, situations where the social script dictates that we should all stand in awkward silence or retreat into the digital safety of our smartphones. This challenge is designed to shatter the scarcity-based repulsive behaviors we identified earlier, specifically the broadcasting of insecurity through phone checking and the avoidance of eye contact. When you pull out your phone in an elevator, you are signaling to the primal brain of everyone around you that you are anxious, that you are closed off, and that you lack the internal resources to handle 30 seconds of unstructured reality. The key here is the open-ended constraint of the question, because we are applying the principles of the conversation control system to invite deeper sharing rather than a binary yes or no response that shuts down the interaction. You are not asking, is this floor 6, or is the line moving, because those are transactional data requests. You are going to ask a question that requires a subjective opinion or a shared observation. Something like, if you could be anywhere in the world right now instead of this elevator, where would you teleport to? Or, if that feels too bold, simply observing a detail in the environment and asking for their take, such as, I've been staring at this poster for 10 minutes and I still can't figure out who the target audience is. What's your read on it? The specific words matter less than the subtext, which is that you are comfortable enough in your own skin to bridge the gap between two human beings. You are utilizing the science of presence to command attention without aggression, maintaining that centered posture and relaxed breathing we discussed in Chapter 4. The psychological impact of this maneuver is twofold. First, it desensitizes you to the friction of initiating contact, proving to your amygdala that social initiation is not a life-threatening event, effectively dampening the fear response that keeps you invisible. Second, it capitalizes on the human brain's hunger for novelty and connection. Remember that the brain makes decisions about people in milliseconds, and when you are the one person in the Uber pool who breaks the icy silence with warmth and genuine curiosity, you are instantly categorized as a leader, as someone with high social capital. You are leveraging the scarcity and uniqueness principle from the chapter on invisible influence, not by being manipulative, but by being the rare individual who is willing to be the first to speak.
Most people are waiting for permission to interact, trapped in their own heads, worrying about being judged, and by stepping out of that cage, you liberate them to do the same. You will be shocked at how often people light up, how the NPCs in your life suddenly develop backstories and personalities simply because you pressed the interaction button. You are practicing the art of listening beyond words,
watching their reaction to see if they engage or withdraw. And if they withdraw, you practice the graceful acceptance principle we covered, proving your emotional independence by not taking their lack of interest as a reflection of your worth. Now we arrive at days 6 and 7, the high-risk phase, where we deploy the most powerful social strategy in existence, the host mindset. Your objective is to enter a social gathering, a party, a networking event, a happy hour, or even a casual dinner, and act as if you are the host, even if you are in reality just another guest. This is the ultimate application of the internal focus to external focus shift, completely eradicating social anxiety by removing the self from the equation. When you walk into a room as a guest, you are typically operating from a deficit, wondering who will talk to you, wondering where to stand, wondering if you fit in. And this neediness radiates off you like a bad odor, triggering the repulsion mechanisms we analyzed in Chapter 2.
The host, however, has a job to do. The host is responsible for the comfort and connection of others, and by adopting this psychological stance, you hack your own behavior. Your specific tactical instruction for these 2 days is to introduce people to each other, acting as the super connector we described in the network effect strategy chapter. You are going to find 2 people who do not know each other, or perhaps 2 people standing awkwardly on the periphery, and you are going to bridge the gap. You walk up to one, introduce yourself using this centered presence body language, open chest, level head, slow breathing, and then you guide them over to someone else and say, "Hey, have you met Sarah? She was just telling me about her trip to Japan, and since you're a photographer, I thought you two would have a lot to talk about." By doing this, you are providing immense value to the social ecosystem. You are alleviating the social burden for others, essentially doing the heavy lifting of interaction for them. This triggers the principle of psychological ownership and authority positioning. Even though you have no formal authority, the group unconsciously assigns you status because you are the one facilitating the flow of social energy. You are demonstrating tribal leadership signals that are deeply encoded in our evolutionary biology, showing that you are looking out for the cohesion of the group rather than just your own survival.
You are creating bridging capital, linking unconnected nodes in the network. And as we discussed, the person who sits at the intersection of information flows is the person who holds the most influence. This also forces you to utilize the listening for hooks technique, where you pay attention to what people tell you solely for the purpose of connecting it to someone else later, which makes your listening incredibly active and intense. You stop worrying about what you are going to say next because your brain is occupied with the puzzle of who does this person need to meet. The beauty of the host mindset is that it is impossible to be anxious and serviceable at the same time. Anxiety is a loop of self-obsession, while service is a loop of other obsession. When you are busy making sure everyone else has a drink, or has someone to talk to, or feels included, you forget to feel awkward. You become the energy source in the room, the sun around which the other planets orbit. And this is not because you are the loudest or the funniest, but because you are the most useful. You are fulfilling the deepest human need for belonging, and by granting that belonging to others, you secure your own place at the top of the hierarchy. This is how you build the social proof that makes you magnetic. When others see you introducing people, they assume you know everyone, they assume you are the hub, and they naturally gravitate toward you to be part of the inner circle.
This 7-day plan is not just a checklist, it is a boot camp for your identity. A rapid-fire conditioning program that proves to your nervous system that you are safe, capable, and valuable in the social realm. We are looking for a screenshot summary of this schedule on the screen right now. A downloadable PDF version is linked below. And I want you to save this, make it your lock screen, print it out, because this is the bridge between the science we have learned and the person you are becoming. Every time you execute one of these missions, you are laying down new neural pathways, thickening the myelin around the circuits of confidence and extinguishing the circuits of fear. You are engaging in identity shifting through evidence. You don't just tell yourself you are charismatic, you prove it by making a stranger smile, by opening a conversation in an elevator, by connecting 2 human beings who would have otherwise remained strangers. You are proving to yourself that magnetism is not a gift you wait for, but a choice you make, moment by moment, interaction by interaction. It is the realization that you have the power to change the chemical composition of a room just by walking into it. that your emotional state is contagious, and that by taking responsibility for that state, you become the master of your fate rather than a victim of circumstance. We are moving you from the scarcity mindset, where you are begging the world for scraps of validation, to the abundance mindset, where you are a generator of good vibes, a distributor of dopamine, a connector of souls. This is the difference between the person who walks into a party and hopes someone talks to them, and the person who walks in and decides to make the party better for everyone else. This transformation requires you to embrace the growth mindset we touched on in Chapter 12. You must be willing to feel the discomfort of the new, to risk the momentary awkwardness for the long-term gain of mastery. You have to understand that every rejection, every weird look, every flat conversation is just data, feedback for your social calibration system, helping you fine-tune your approach. The barista might not smile, the person in the elevator might ignore you, the introduction at the party might be clunky, and that is perfect. That is the resistance training that builds the muscle. If it were easy, everyone would be magnetic, everyone would be influential, but they aren't, because they are unwilling to face that micro friction. You are different. You are a social sniper, deliberate, strategic, and focused on the objective of creating value.
As you move through this week, you will notice a shift in how people respond to you, a subtle warming of the atmosphere, a tendency for people to linger longer in your presence, to look at you with more interest, to seek your approval. This is the invisible influence system coming online. It is not magic, acceptance, connection, and safety. And in return, they will give you their trust, their loyalty, and their influence. You are effectively hacking the reciprocity activation principle. By giving value first, you create a psychological debt that others are eager to repay. You are constructing a life of abundance, where you are no longer hunting for opportunities, but attracting them through the gravity of your character. This is the essence of the magnetic lifestyle design. It is not about faking it until you make it. It is about practicing it until you become it. You are stepping into the role of the social leader, the person who sets the tone, who goes first, who takes the risk. And remember the law of state transfer. Whatever you are feeling, they are feeling.
If you are having fun with this challenge, if you approach the barista with genuine delight, if you ask the elevator question with a sparkle in your eye, if you introduce people with enthusiasm, that energy will bypass their logical defenses and go straight to their emotional centers. You are not just communicating information, you are transmitting an emotional experience. So do not look at this PDF as homework. Look at it as a treasure map. Day 1, tomorrow morning, when you get your coffee, that is not a transaction. That is your training ground. That barista is not a service worker. She is your sparring partner. That silence in the elevator is not a void. It is a stage. That party on Saturday is not a test of your worth. It is a laboratory for your leadership. You are taking the theoretical knowledge of neuroscience of connection and evolutionary biology and turning it into kinetic energy. You are becoming the person who makes things happen, the protagonist of the movie, rather than the extra in the background. This is how you build unshakable self-acceptance, not by affirming it in the mirror, but by surviving the social wilderness and realizing you have the tools to thrive. You are proving that you can handle the low risk, dominate the medium risk, and master the high risk. And once you have done that, the entire world opens up. The fear of rejection evaporates because you realize that rejection is just a filtering mechanism, saving you time on people who aren't ready for what you have to offer. You stop taking things personally, employing the refusing to take difficult behavior personally strategy we discussed, seeing a rude reaction not as a reflection of you, but as a symptom of their own scarcity. You are becoming bulletproof, not because you are hardened, but because you are fluid, adaptable, and endlessly generous with your presence. The social sniper does not fire bullets. He fires questions, he fires compliments, he fires introductions, and his aim is true. He knows that the most powerful weapon in the world is a genuine interest in another human being. He knows that presence is power, that listening is influence, and that making someone feel like the most important person in the world is the key to the kingdom. So download the plan, commit to the schedule, and watch as the invisible walls you built around yourself crumble, replaced by bridges that lead everywhere you have ever wanted to go.
Let's shut out the noise for a second and engage in a very specific, very necessary mental exercise. Because if you cannot visualize the destination, you will never endure the journey required to get there. I want you to suspend your disbelief and future pace with me to a scenario exactly 6 months from today. You have committed to the protocols we have discussed. You have internalized the science of abundance, and you have ruthlessly eliminated the scarcity mindset that has been acting like a parking brake on your social potential. Picture the scene. It is a Tuesday night, or perhaps a crowded Saturday social. It doesn't matter, but the environment is high stakes for you. Maybe it is a networking event where the key gatekeepers of your industry are holding court, or maybe it is a dinner party with people you previously found intimidating. In the old version of your life, this was a moment of high cortisol, where your amygdala would be firing off threat signals, telling you to shrink, to check your phone, to find the nearest wall and blend into the wallpaper to avoid the pain of rejection. But 6 months from now, that version of you is dead. You walk through the door, and the first thing you notice is your relationship with the space itself. You are not shrinking, you are occupying your right to exist. You are moving with that center of gravity we talked about, the physical manifestation of social sovereignty, where your spine is erect not because you are posturing, but because you are no longer carrying the crushing weight of needing other people's validation to feel okay. You take a breath, and it's deep, diaphragmatic, hitting the bottom of your lungs, signaling to your parasympathetic nervous system that you are safe, which in turn signals to every mammal in the room that you are a person of high status and low threat. As you move into the room, you aren't scanning the crowd with that frantic, who do I know, who can save me energy that broadcasts insecurity like a radio tower. You are scanning with contribution consciousness. You are looking at the room and thinking, who here needs to be heard? Who here looks uncomfortable and needs a lifeline? You spot a group. You walk over. In the past, you would have hovered on the periphery, waiting for a break in the conversation to insert a rehearsed line about yourself to prove you belong. Not anymore. You slide into the circle with an open body language that signals you are there to give, not take. You catch the eye of the person speaking, and you give them that specific grounded eye contact we analyzed, the kind that doesn't dart away nervously, but also doesn't stare aggressively. It is the look of a person who is completely present, completely absorbed in the other person's reality. You are listening with empathic accuracy, hearing not just the words they are saying about their job or their weekend, but hearing the underlying emotion, the pride in their voice about a project, or the subtle frustration about a chaotic schedule. And because you hear that, your first question isn't what do you do? Your first question cuts right to the emotional core. Something like, that sounds incredibly demanding. Do you find you thrive in that kind of chaos, or are you looking for a way out? Suddenly, the energy of the entire circle shifts. You have just disrupted the surface-level social script. You have offered them the rarest gift in the modern world, the feeling of being truly seen. The person you are talking to feels a hit of dopamine and oxytocin, the bonding hormone, and their brain instantly categorizes you as a high-value ally. You can feel the change in the air. The other people in the group stop looking over your shoulder for someone more important. They turn their bodies toward you. You have become the gravitational center of the interaction, not because you are the loudest, not because you are doing tricks, but because you have mastered the art of making them feel like the most interesting people on the planet. This is the new you. You are the thermostat, not the thermometer. You are setting the emotional temperature of the interaction, regulating the anxiety of others with your own calm, infecting them with your positivity through the science of emotional contagion. You walk away from that interaction 20 minutes later, and you haven't just exchanged business cards. You have created a psychological anchor. When they go home that night, they might not remember every word you said, but they will vividly remember how they felt in your presence. Safe, significant, and energized. That is the power of becoming an energy source rather than an energy drain. Now, snap back to the present moment. That reality is available to you, but it is not free. It costs the death of your old identity. And this brings us to the most uncomfortable truth of this entire video, the part most people will skip because it hurts too much to look at directly: the cost of inaction. There is a dangerous myth floating around your subconscious that says staying where you are is safe. You tell yourself, I'm just introverted,
or I'm just not a people person, and you use those labels as a shield to protect yourself from the risk of trying. But let's look at the data. Let's look at the price you are paying for remaining invisible. The cost is not zero. The cost is astronomical. Every day you remain in this scarcity mindset, broadcasting neediness or fading into the background, you are paying a life tax.
You are paying in missed promotions because your boss doesn't feel a connection with you. You are paying in lost romantic opportunities because you were too terrified to hold eye contact and signal interest. You are paying in the superficiality of your current friendships, which are stuck in the fact layer of conversation because you lack the skills to guide them into the emotion layer where real bonding happens. Think about the psychological toll of being the energy drain without even realizing it. When you approach an interaction needing validation, needing the other person to laugh at your jokes so you feel good, needing them to approve of your opinion, you are subconsciously signaling that you are a resource burden. Their neuron mirrors pick up on your anxiety, their amygdala flogs you as a stressor, and they pull away. You feel that rejection, and it reinforces your belief that you aren't good with people, creating a feedback loop of isolation. That is the trajectory you are on right now if you do not intervene. Fast forward 10 years on that path. It's a lonely place. It's a place where you are constantly watching other people less smart than you, less talented than you, but more socially intelligent than you, bypass you in every metric of success and happiness. They get the deals, they get the girl, they get the guy, they get the vibrant social circle, and you are left wondering why the world is so unfair. It's not unfair, it's science. They learned the language of human connection, and you refuse to pick up the textbook. The pain of trying and failing is an acute, sharp pain that heals quickly. The pain of regret, of knowing you had the potential to be a magnet but chose to stay a ghost, that is a chronic, dull ache that rots your soul from the inside out. So we are standing at a crossroads. You now possess the blueprint. We have deconstructed the myths that charisma is a birthright, that you have to be an extrovert, that you have to be fake. We have proven that magnetism is a set of psychological triggers: presence, warmth, competence, and the ability to fulfill the core human need for significance. You know about the scarcity versus abundance mindset shift. You know about the power of strategic vulnerability and emotional labeling. You understand that you must become the person who gives value first, who listens with the intent to understand rather than reply, and who holds their own internal state with unshakable stability. You have the network effect strategy in your pocket, understanding that your net worth is tied to your network, and that building bridging capital is the fastest way to accelerate your life. The information is no longer the bottleneck. The bottleneck is your willingness to endure the discomfort of day one. Because let's be real, day one is going to suck. You are going to try to maintain centered posture, and you're going to feel stiff.
You are going to try to ask a deep question, and you might stutter or pick the wrong moment. You are going to try to hold eye contact, and your primitive brain is going to scream at you to look down. This is called conscious incompetence. It feels gross. It feels like wearing shoes on the wrong feet. And this is where 99% of people quit. They interpret that awkwardness as a sign that this isn't me. They retreat back to the comfort zone of invisibility. But you are not going to do that. You are going to understand that the awkwardness is the sensation of the neural pathways physically rewiring themselves. You are going to push through to conscious competence, where you can do it, but it takes effort, and eventually to unconscious competence, where you simply are magnetic. You flow, you attract. It becomes your default setting. I need you to make a decision right now. Not a passive wish, but a binding contract with your future self. I want to see who is actually serious about this transformation and who is just using this video as edutainment to procrastinate on their life. If you are ready to kill the invisible version of yourself and start the protocol to become the social leader you were designed to be, I want you to go to the comment section right now. Do not wait. Scroll down and type the word magnet. That is it, just that one word.
By typing that, you are signaling to me, but more importantly to your own psychology, that you are crossing the threshold. You are committing to day one. You are committing to the new you who operates from abundance, not scarcity. I am going to personally be in the comments for the next 48 hours, and I will be replying to the first 500 people who type magnet to hold you accountable.
I want to see your names. I want to know who I am talking to. I want to know who is coming with us to the other side. Once you have left that comment, you have initiated the mindset shift, but you need the tactical toolkit to execute the storytelling aspect we discussed. Remember, being present is the foundation, but being able to captivate a room with a narrative is the structure you build on top of that foundation. You need to know how to open a loop that makes it impossible for people to stop listening. You need to know the rhythm of humor and the architecture of suspense. I have broken down the exact storytelling frameworks used by the world's greatest stand-up comedians, who are the masters of holding attention in hostile environments, in this video right here. It is the missing piece of the puzzle that turns your new presence into a performance that influences, persuades, and entertains. Don't let the momentum die here. Click the video on your screen and let's turn that magnetism into a weapon of mass influence.